Thanks. Since we have a smallish group, I'm not gonna spotlight us. According to Apple, it is 7:33. And I could get my timer to start. I call this June 8th special meeting to order. And as a public service reminder, these meetings are always open to the public. They're meetings of the Board of Selectmen to conduct the ongoing business of the board. If you'd like to offer comment, there's an opportunity on the agenda to do so. When commenting, please state your name and title if applicable. If the meeting's interrupted due to disconnection, we'll do our best to resume not less than 30 minutes from the time of interruption. And I see Carly put something in the chat. It may be you may have something on mute, Carly. Can everybody hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
All righty. I know that town council is due on the meeting as well. But John, do you want to just sort of start us off with the reason why we're all gathered here today?
Thanks, Jean. Yeah, and thank you, Rufus and Glenn as well, and others who are able to join us at this special requested meeting. But we did feel that the gravity of the matter is really justifies this extra meeting to try to work this out and get the tax abatement amounts solidified as much as possible for our veteran members and our emergency responders. And we understand that certainly looking at the options that were assembled after our most recent dialogue with option one, what appears to be the preferred option for town council, really didn't amount to a whole lot of change that I think we had the impression was going to happen. But I think really what it amounted to is that you took our concerns back to town council and voiced our concerns. That it didn't seem to result in as much change in the way that we had hoped, particularly in solidifying the tax abatement numbers. Option two, thank you for including that in there. I think that would be the most preferred option by the members of the fire department, as that does appear to solidify the tax abatement numbers for qualified veteran members and qualified emergency responders. Option three, when you look over it, it really does have a lot of resemblance to option one, and doesn't really kind of get us where we want to be. So I think we wanted to see if we could try to figure out what's really necessary here in order to secure these amounts as written by SOP 1-7, which calls for the $1,000 tax abatement for qualified veteran members and a $2,000 tax abatement for qualified first responders. I know there was some discussion about the specifically referred to, I believe, in one of these options, that a meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the fire department would be helpful. I guess if I could seek some clarification, that was something we would have considered and still might, but it seemed like the crux of the matter was who's legislating. And as we understood it from town council, does such a meeting satisfy the need for or fulfill a kind of a definition that town council is looking for in terms of who is legislating?
So, as a way to possibly save our taxpayers some money this evening, because town council's not on the call yet, I had a fairly lengthy conversation with him. I think it was late last week. And we sort of dug back into the language. And at the end of the conversation, he was comfortable with revising that number 3. And if everybody will bear with me, I'm going to go on screen share for a second. So what you see here, can you guys all see that? Is that big enough?
Yes.
So what had been in this number 3 after revised language were the 3 options, the red, yellow, and blue. And in talking to him,
Green, red, green, blue.
yes, red, green, blue.
Okay, just making sure we're on the same
Yeah.
page. And Jean, if you could enlarge that a little bit,
Sure.
because that's fresh language that I don't have in front of me otherwise.
Yes. So the salient one was for number 3.
Correct.
So
Yep.
he was, after some conversation back and forth and reading the other parts of the ordinance to make sure that it meets the legal the legal terms of the statute, he was comfortable with changing that initial paragraph of subsection 3 to what you see there, which is option 2.
Okay. Okay. I also see some language entered that.
Yeah, I just wanted to address because number 3 was really the sort of the crux of the biscuit all along. So I wanted to just have everybody settle with that. And then we added a piece up further based on some feedback at previous meetings about the word notarized, that it hadn't been included before. Then he added it. And as we discussed it, and I explained to him that getting something, having a volunteer who may be working during the day and volunteering for the fire department to get something notarized Monday through Friday between 9 and 4 might be difficult. And is that legally necessary? And he said, actually, it's not. You could, as long as there's an attestation statement or an attestation, some sort of attestation that it is true and accurate to the best of the department's knowledge. And so we went back and forth. It was originally just going to be a reference, but I wanted to make it clear and concise for the fire department to understand what kind of language the town is looking for when they submit that list, so that it checks all the boxes and crosses the T and dots the I. So we included that phrase: the list shall include an attestation statement that the foregoing list of eligible volunteers is true and accurate to the best of the department's knowledge. You can lift that right from the ordinance, put it on your list, and whomever would, sign the bottom can sign it. So we would be removing the word notarized. I removed this extra by because it's just a garbage word, not needed. And then we added that phrasing here.
Okay, I see a comparison to option number 2 in the document to the revised number 3 that you have put up on the screen. Is that?
I'm quite sure it's word for word. what option number 2 read.
Okay. Okay, so it does,
It removes the, in consultation with the KVFD,
yep,
it removes amount determined by the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
And it removes the, where was the other one? Jointly by and between the KVFD and the BOS.
okay. This is an encouraging development here, as they say. If I could, I believe our treasurer is on board here. If I could I call on him to comment as well from his perspective?
Sure.
So before we do that, Gene, the chat, the Darlene's point.
Sorry, I'm on screen share, so I can't see any of the chat. And do you all mind if
Okay.
I come off screen share for a couple minutes?
Well, the sentence at its next regularly scheduled meeting, the BOS shall acknowledge receipt of and get rid of the notarized and just of said list. So notarized should be or said statement.
Second to last word, number 2. Oh, I see.
The
That
last
looks-
sentence,
yeah.
number 2.
Oh, thank you. Down here.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
catch.
I'll make sure to take that out.
Well, we're going to acknowledge the receipt, but it's not necessarily a notarized list. It's
Right.
the attestation, of said
Right.
statement.
Yeah, I just missed that word notarized. And if you could see how huge it is right now for me on my monitor, you'd be surprised that I didn't pick that up. But thanks, Star. Eric, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, excuse me, thanks. I believe that's what the membership will be on board with. Yeah, I do.
Are there other changes, Gene, in the document?
No, that was it. Everything else had been gone through. It was really this number 3. And then when Randy and I got to the bottom of that conversation, I just asked if we could talk about the notarized word again. And then we came up with that other phrasing.
Thank you.
Short.
Oh, now Eric has his hand up.
Yep. Go ahead, Eric.
I believe there is another concern in the document, if you'd like me to go there.
Yes.
This point.
Sure.
So, Randy talked about who's writing policy for the town. Well, in number 4, the way it's written, it basically now flips the coin here, and the town of Kent wants to write policy for the fire department, which I don't believe the membership is on board with.
Can you screen share number 4, Gene?
Yep. Hang on a second.
Sorry, Eric. to
No
interrupt.
problem. No problem. And this refers to changing of the SOP, which is a KVFD document. It is written by the KVFD. All our SOPs are internal. So having an outside organization help write that is, I think, challenging.
Is that big enough?
Yes.
Currently, it's just that it has to be on file with the town clerk. The Board of Selectmen will be notified of all changes within 30 days of adoption by their membership. Failure of the Board of Selectmen to act on the amended SOP within 35 days of official submission shall be taken as approval of the SOP.
So Eric, how do you see that as the Board of Selectmen trying to get involved in the consultant collaborate? I don't necessarily see that as I thought the intent would be, at least I look at this as we're not trying to get involved in writing your SOP, but we'd like to see if you decide to make changes to it, whether or not that's, you know, I mean, you might, I can't see this happening, but that maybe, you know, you're going off in a direction that might say, make it too easy for people to, you know.
No, I completely agree and understand what you're saying, Rufus. My feeling, you know, the department hasn't weighed these options yet, but the way I see it, the way it reads now is the fire department makes their change, gets their approval from their membership to make the change, and submits it to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen has the opportunity to deny the change and kick it back to the department for review. It's very difficult for the department to be involved with outside agencies writing policy. So I don't have to tell you, Rufus, you know how the department operates. Everything's done by the membership. So
Right.
in order to get something changed, it would be a process that would go on for 6-8 months, I would think, if we had to involve the Board of Selectmen in making the decisions to make the changes. So the way I envision it is that the department makes the change, they submit it to the board. If the board is dead set against it, they reject it. But maybe I'm missing something. I don't know.
So,
Yeah, it was really just added in to insert more engagement before the final product in a way to get feedback from the board while you're in your process rather than after your process. That was the intent of that.
I again, completely understand. I just don't see it going smoothly.
I mean, I can't see why the Board of Selectmen would reject an amended SOP unless the board felt that, like I said, you were gonna make it too easy for people to reach that, you know, the criteria.
Right.
And I wouldn't think that the department itself would want that either. So I'm not sure, you know, so you're just saying we want to be able to submit any amended SOP, and then you guys can either accept it or reject it. Which if a board did reject it, it would put you back several months.
Sure could. Yep.
Yeah, you, Carly. So more, staying with that more just formalized process. Carly, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to jump in there with Eric about that. It's a problem because, well, for instance, the last time I'm on the SOP committee, and Eric was too, that just changed that, I believe, back in 2015. And we actually made it more difficult to get the abatement. Excuse me. And to do this correctly, it's the department committee works on making a change. It goes through an awful lot. And you, two of you on that board, you know. But 10 years from now, whoever's sitting on that board may not have been a member of the fire department, and they might not know how difficult it is. So I'm in agreement with Eric. This is something that has to stay within the department for setting that SOP.
Yeah, there's no intent that it would not, that there would be any decision-making by, I mean, ultimately, there is, we could reject it, or, you know, there are two options. We reject it today. We would reject it, or we would accept it. This was to,
Forcing us to sit down at a meeting. We have enough trouble getting people to sit down in meetings here. We've got so many meetings we have to do, and we're volunteers.
Mhm.
It's an incredibly difficult situation, and then to add another meeting to meet with the Board of Selectmen down the road over something that I just don't think
Carly, I don't see this as a meeting necessarily. I mean, it, you know, it would be a notification that you're going to you're working on amending the SOP. I would think that the first selectman would, at that point, want to have a conversation. Wouldn't even have to necessarily be a meeting, but a conversation as to, could you just keep me informed on the direction you're heading in, what's going on? You know, I don't see this as adding a meeting to anybody.
well, the sentence does say, the second sentence there does say the BOS and the KVFD and KVFD delegates shall meet within 30 days of said notification and discuss the intended amendments.
Oh, well, then you're right, but maybe we take that out, that sentence out. I don't see why that would be necessary. I think the idea would be that there's a forewarning from the fire department that we're thinking of changing, we're working on maybe changing our SOP. And I'm not sure that a meeting is necessary. But it would be nice to let people know what the intent of the amending is somewhere in the process, so that once you get it, we would know how to sort of defend your position.
John?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't find the digital hand raising. So thanks for calling on me. I see in this first sentence, the KVFD shall notify the Board of Selectmen. So that looks like it's a must have, or I mean, it has to happen.
Yep.
When it says shall. but then it goes on to say, so as to consult and collaborate with the BOS. And Rufus answered my question partly when he said, and I agree with his interpretation, that there may not even need to be an official warned or agendaed meeting with the Board of Selectmen. And it doesn't really specify where in the process that the revisions of an SOP that the Board of Selectmen would have to be involved with. So I do see a certain amount of flexibility there. And there does seem to be some merit to the upfront inconvenience of some kind of communication, be it in an email exchange or what have you, and maybe just getting minutes of the tax abatement committee to the Board of Selectmen as a way of keeping them appraised of the progress going on there. And I think there may be some merit also to avoiding a situation where the Board of Selectmen feels compelled to reject it. Because that I could see that being the advent of a certain amount of unhealthy consternation there. So there may be some merit to that. And then also, I mean, I don't know. Are you even able? Well, yeah, I'll leave it at that. But
Hey, I have a few questions, if I may.
Sure.
Amended SOPs, does this happen yearly or once every 5 years, or like how often do these happen?
that's a great question, Glenn. And I'll start with not very often at all. But I think Carly or Eric, I believe they've served on the committees like this. They'll have actually a more accurate answer, and I think they're going to say somewhere on the average or neighborhood of every decade. But
Really?
ahead.
This
Gina.
SOP was, I think it was 2012 was the first year. And it's
Oh,
been
really?
amended. This is just the second time it's been amended.
Ah, okay, because
And what we did was close a loophole.
okay.
So it
Yep.
was an important amendment. And it benefited the town, but it
Okay.
made us, it made it better for the department too. We want to keep everything
mhm.
I see.
up and secure. I mean, this isn't anything to fool around with.
No, that's great. That actually answers my second two questions, because I was going to ask, has a Board of Selectmen ever rejected an amended SOP?
We did 3 months ago ish.
But prior to, I mean, does that
Never before that.
Never before that? Okay.
Never.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, it's funny because I look at it, in all the years I was in the fire department, you got all these volunteers and they're there to make the town a better town by providing fire and ambulance services. I just think that the idea of the consultation of, we're amending the SOP is, I think it benefits both Board of Selectmen and the Kent Fire Department to have conversations that the process is happening,
Not just we're notifying you after the fact.
right. Because I think that allows the Board of Selectmen chance to get on board. I mean, I want to strengthen the fact that, we can help the department and acknowledge that, I mean, you guys are providing a service that if you weren't there, it would be extremely costly for the town. So everything that you're doing is for the betterment of Kent.
Could I amend the first three sentences? If, just indulge me with this,
Or
actually getting rid of part of the first one, actually the first two sentences. If it said something like this, tell me if this is reasonable. In the event, the Kent VFD intends to amend SOP 107, the KVFD shall notify the BOS in writing of its intent to amend, and at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, they shall discuss the intended amendments. Meaning that the Board of Selectmen still gets something in writing. We're notified that there's a change and that these changes are talked about in the next meeting. So it wouldn't require a special meeting. It would just be a regular meeting. And it would seem to do away with the verbs consult and collaborate, which seems to be a sticking point. So the Board of Selectmen are aware there is a meeting, but there's simply a discussion of the intended amendments. Would that be enough for all parties involved?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the consultant collaborate. I do like the, replacing it with the at the next meeting versus the within 30 days, because then it might become a crunch, because we all know how fast 30 days ticks by.
And the next Board of Selectmen meeting, it'll probably happen within 30 days anyway. So,
Right.
Yeah. So,
I mean, if you left the first sentence with of its intent to amend, period. Then the Board of Selectmen is aware that the fire department is doing this.
I say,
I'm assuming that could come anywhere in the process. Once the fire department has agreed on the amended SOP, it would, it would be nice to have somebody from the fire department at the Board of Selectmen meeting to explain the changes. So rather than saying like Carly was concerned about another meeting for the volunteers, someone, John or the head of the SOP committee, or it would just be one person or however wanted to come, but it wouldn't have to be
The entire executive committee or, right.
I say,
Do you want to know the problem with that?
I don't know who had their digital hand up first, so I'll,
Okay,
Carly, go ahead, you started.
well, the problem with that is, other than the fact that it would make our process take so long for what we go through to change an SOP, and it has to go to the executive committee and long before it ever gets to the membership, and then it comes back to us. If they don't like it, we have to rewrite it and we do things again, and it's a long process. This isn't 30 days later. And then on top of that, you've opened it up now to a town meeting where we're going to have to broach the subject of internal stuff for the fire department with everybody in the town. And what if they don't like it? I see this turn into a huge mess.
Well, it's a public meeting, not a town meeting.
Well, that's what I
Just a-
mean, but public, you know, I've been on your public meetings. I see how many people show up ordinarily.
Eric, go
Oh,
ahead.
because it deals with a tax abatement. And that's the document that is going to create the tax abatement criteria. The Board of Selectmen have to either approve it or reject it.
Which they would do after we give it to them.
Right.
I
Right.
more like what John said, you know, if we submitted our minutes, our meeting minutes or something to, so you could see the process, but to involve people in how we operate and what we do to get to that point, it's gonna turn it into a real mess.
Well, and actually, your point, you know, it really doesn't say when the notification happens. But if you do notify us, then the second sentence is, you know, we're gonna meet. You might not be ready to discuss intended amendments in 30 days. At what point, you know, that is a problem, Gene.
It took us a long time to do, I don't remember the exact length of time, maybe Eric does, but it took a long time for us to get that, this past time when we made the change. It took a long time for us to come up with how that was going to work. And that was no, that was no 30 days. It took us months to do that.
Eric, you want to go ahead? You've had your hand up for a while.
Thanks. I got a couple of things. From what I'm hearing from Rufus is after it sounds like after the SOP is approved by the department, you want somebody to come in and review it with the Board of Selectmen. I think that's absolutely more than reasonable to do.
So Eric, could we
yes.
change in the event the KVFD votes on amending SOP 1-7. So you vote to amend it, you've
Yep.
approved it, right?
Yep.
That then at that point, the KVFD and the Board of Selectmen meet to discuss.
Yeah, I mean,
Honestly,
it reverts back to what the
hardly
current,
any different than
correct.
than it is now, which is fine if that's what the board, you know, if that's the way that you want to go.
Right, you
I
need to add
do-
in something about meeting, because that's not in there. It's you know, submitted to the Board of Selectmen now, I believe is how it reads or something like
Yep.
that. Can I just ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
And I'm just curious as to why the change was here, because was there something that the fire department did that upset the Board of Selectmen? Because like I said, we've done this now. This will be the second amendment from the original. The first one, like Carly said, was to actually tighten it up. We found some loopholes where veteran members were actually kind of just hanging on the ranks and rolls to hit their 20 years and you know, get the tax abatement for life. And so we tightened that up so that they had to participate more. And this change was basically just to get in line with the $2,000 of the change in the state statute. So is there some concern that we did something wrong, or I guess that's my real question.
No, it was really just to create more, better communication throughout the whole process, because the way it is now, it's, it comes to us.
Yep.
Once you're all done with it. And it was to foster that, collaborative relationship between the two entities.
Okay.
I think that might be more important if you had a board where you didn't have a couple people who've been in the fire department,
True. Very true. Yep.
so that might, it just somewhere in the process, but as we've discussed for right now, the first sentence is so vague, it's really kind of meaningless. And then the second sentence puts this time limit on it. Maybe we do need to just simply say, in the event KVFD amends, just simplify the language completely. As a department amends SOP 1-7, the KVFD shall meet.
But then we're back to the original language. So
Yeah. So
in the way that I think about that first sentence, I don't have a problem with it, because when the KVFD sets their intention, right? So that's what, when you think about those words in a different way, when the KVFD sets their intention to amend an SOP, they have to do it at a meeting. Correct? They can't just sit in the back of the firehouse and a couple people say, well, we want to amend the SOP. That would not meet this language. The fire department would have to formally meet and hand it over, whether somebody introduces new language or the SOP committee decides that, something else needs to be cleaned up or they want to make a change. So it's a formal process. And so that intention on the fire department's end is a formal process. It's not like me intending to go home at 9 o'clock. It's a formal process. So once that happens, then they would notify the Board of Selectmen to let them know that they're going through this lengthy process. But I do think that the 30-day piece should be changed to something else.
Well, but if you, Gene, then, it's not, basically what it says is, if you look at the second and then the third sentence, that puts a hard.
Right.
And that's not what the intention is.
Right.
So following such a meeting, when
The structure of that third sentence is a little clunky, because the first phrase, following such meeting, the
That
KVF
should be
shall
deleted.
submit, it should be structured a little bit differently. Because it makes it seem like it has to be within 30 days of the the first meeting, but it's not. That's not.
So get
Correct,
rid of
once you read through
following
it.
such a meeting.
Yeah.
Following such meeting. So the KFD shall submit everything within 30 days of the adoption of the amendment. That makes sense. And then we've got 35 days to either do nothing or whatever.
So
Jane, can I step in here for a second?
Sure.
The reason for, see, it has to get through the executive committee first. And then be recommended to the membership for whatever the next meeting would be following. That we would say that we recommend this change, and then the department would vote on it. But it has to get through the executive committee first. Perhaps there's something you want to, if you want to keep that in there, although I disagree with it, but if you wanted to keep it in there, make it so that we notify you after the executive committee has made all the agreement on, okay, this is the way we're gonna submit it to the membership to vote on. Because the long process is the part between this SOP committee making changes and discussing all that, and then going and taking it to the executive committee, and then they have to work on it. If they don't like something in it, they send it back to the SOP committee. And then we go back to them, and that takes months to get that done.
Mhm.
So maybe when it's approved by when it gets to the point where it's approved by the executive committee is where you might want to have us talk about it or something. But before that, it's almost pointless. And after that, it's going to a vote to the membership. And then we're back to where we were to start with the membership. Once we do that and the members vote on it and approve it, assuming they do, then we would be to the point where we are right now, or we were before, which is we submit it to the town, and if you don't like it, you reject it. But this is what we decided as a department. So that's all.
Thanks, Carly. So, board members, how would you like to proceed? Do you want me to have a conversation with town council and we can draft up some changes in this number 4?
Yeah, I don't see a board of selectmen getting involved in the process. I think the intent was, like you said, just simply to know the process was taking place and kind of understand why. But that can happen with the submission of the final adopted SOP. You know, and it would be nice that the fire department, you know, speak about it at formally defend any amended SOP to the Board of Selectmen. And it doesn't have to be, it could be somebody from the SOP committee or somebody from the executive committee or whatever, say, here's what we've voted on and this is why, boom, boom, boom. And then I think that's all we really want. I mean, I can't speak for the others, but that would it's sharing the rationale behind any amendment in time for the board to consider it. And
Right.
You know, and we'd have 35 days to consider it, or if it goes beyond 35 days and there's no action, it would be, so maybe that's what it was before and that's how we would leave it.
Mhm.
And then, you know, but I wouldn't want the technicality of say we got a certified letter in the selectman's office by the fire department of the amended SOP, starting a timeline. I'd rather see the fire department, deliver the SOP at a meeting. This is what we're doing. This is why we voted on it. This is how the department feels. And then start the 35 days. And it may be that the the Board of Selectmen says, great, appreciate your hard work. Done, right there at that meeting, or we might, a future board might want to consider it. Have another conversation with somebody, I don't know. So I think that's really the intent of what it's all about. I agree with Eric that the fire department does not want us to get involved.
Yeah.
And
I think we all
I
agree on
wouldn't
that.
want to be involved.
Right, it's
It's not our business.
right. All right, so I'll follow up with town council. We'll come up with, based on all this feedback, come up with some alternative language for that 4. And if it makes sense before the next regular Board of Selectmen meeting to squeeze in one more special meeting so that we can get this buttoned up and final, so that we can vote on it at the regular monthly meeting, we will endeavor to do that. Carly,
So-
do you have your hand up, or was it just not taken down?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I can't see it, so I don't know if it's still up. Is it
Okay.
up?
It is. That's okay.
Oh, lower my
It's-
hand. Okay.
Yeah, it's tough to see anything with the when you're on screen share. Does that sound like a good plan, Rufus, Glenn?
It's good for me. I have a question. So what lines do we think need to be amended? You don't have to put it back up again. I mean, are we redoing that entire paragraph? Or is it just like one clause? I mean, that's what, when Eric first brought this up, I assumed it was that one clause, which I tried to get rid of. But is it really that entire paragraph now that we're looking at?
It's not necessarily the entire paragraph, but it was gonna be the 30-day, that first 30-day notification. And there were a number of changes that I wrote down and have a lot of notes to look at, and I'd really like to talk to town council and just get the assistance with drafting some new language. I'm not ready to do this on the fly right now. I'd rather come back and watch this meeting again. And then have a conversation with town council and give him all of the feedback and come up with hopefully the final piece for this number 4.
Jean, could you send what we saw tonight
Sure.
to us so that we can look it
Percolate on
over and maybe even submit to you a possibility?
Sure.
Eric's hand is up.
Eric.
Just wanted to quick clarify, Glenn, you had asked the question of the timeline. I think I said 2012, it was 2002. So this is 21 years in the.
Wow. Oh, thank you.
Sure.
And Eric and John, this is this piece number 4. This is it. Everything else seems to be okay at this point. We're okay with 3, and there's no other pieces that we need to consider for the next meeting.
I'm good. I think the department's good. Yeah. It was that number 3, and then 4.
and 4. Okay. Great, thanks.
All right, we will go into public comment. Is there any public comment? A very small crowd tonight.
I would just like to thank John and Eric and the fire department, and everybody else
Yeah, Carly and Wendell.
for this. Carly, Wendell. You know, it's not really the reason why you sign up to do what you do, but
Right.
it's necessary, and thank you for your time and effort.
Agreed, thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you
thanks for-
everybody for an exciting Thursday night. Any other public comment? All right.
Thank you for plugging away at this with us. It feels like we're definitely making some progress here.
Yeah.
So,
So it is 8:29 and I will entertain a motion to wrap things up.
So moved.
Now it's 8:30. Exactly. All righty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Thank you.
you, everybody. Have a
hey,
good.
it's a 1 hour meeting. That's pretty good for all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.